I started my first business at 2017, which was a fitness consultancy working with bodybuilders and powerlifters and training them for competitions. Now, I really enjoyed this business. However, I knew deep down that this ultimately was a business that had a very firm ceiling, and ultimately I would be trading my time for the vast majority of my exposure to the industry. I realized from a little prompt with Cameron that actually the adult entertainment space was a great one to consider, given that it was addiction-based and ultimately would always have customers available, and your customers would always be trying to buy your product, which is a dream to an entrepreneur. Now, we actually kicked off with Webcam, and we ran a webcam agency where we worked with creators specifically on things like strip chat, adult work, etc. Now, it's no secret that webcam girls and other adult entertainment creators will typically prefer to work as few hours as possible, and as a result, option A is accept that and make very little money because the creators aren't willing to put the hours in. Option B is to take a more immoral approach and provide alternate incentives for those creators to work harder. Neither of these appeal to us because we wanted to make money, but equally we didn't want to make it in an immoral fashion. This was where OnlyFans sparked an interest. We figured out that if we could offer a service to creators where they could do less work but actually generate more revenue, it's an offer that they can't refuse. And at the time, there was no other OnlyFans agencies. This was not something that was being offered. So at the time, it was a complete no-brainer for all creators. Now, like any agency, you can kind of somewhat figure a couple of things out, and you can make a few $1,000s. Realistically, anybody can make a few $1,000s with OFM if they understand the basic principles of a little bit of traffic, a little bit of chatting. The concept or the proof thereof is quite easy to attain. So we thought, okay, brilliant, we can make a few $1,000s here with X creator. Let's do it again, and again. So we did, and we did this hundreds of times. We had over 100 creators, but we were still only generating a couple $100,000 a month. And ultimately, we knew at this point, this is not how we should be spending our time, because we are outputting hundreds, thousands of hours for what ultimately could be achieved with one creator when done properly. Now, there was one day in the office where we were analyzing strategy and thinking about how we can grow, like we all do every day in our business. And we came up with a diagram that compared hyper-focusing on one creator with spreading your focus amongst all creators. Now, we kind of realized that this was the trend that we would see, and this is kind of what it would look like plotted on a graph. The absolute ideal point would be somewhere up here, which is where you've got loads of creators and they're all smashing it with loads of traffic. Ultimately, to begin with, this is quite difficult, but it's what everyone's working towards. Anyway, we realized this would provide us with likely very little headache, but in fact, quite a lot of risk. If you've got one amazing creator and she leaves, the account gets banned, whatever, your business falls overnight. So it was too risky for our preference. Down here, which is where we were, we had a very low risk business model. The likelihood of our business falling apart was super slim. We could have 10 creators leave. Well, we had 100 more. It didn't matter. Our turnover was going to be pretty consistent, but equally we were dealing with a monumental volume of headache, and the effort or the admin per dollar of revenue was crazy high. And ultimately it wasn't optimal, to be completely honest. So we kind of figured, okay, well, the ideal route of growth would be something a little bit like that, working towards this ideal point. So we shifted in a little bit, and we decided one day, let's figure out how we can get to a point where we have fewer, but still a large volume of very, very good and well-scaled creators. But one thing that was consistent amongst all of our creators was that they all had a banging chatting ratio. Every single account was performing very, very well from a chatting perspective. So we sat there and we thought, this is pretty good, because we know for a fine fact that no other agencies are getting these results. And at the time we were connecting with a few other recognized faces within the space, people like Dean Indigo, people like Nath Aston. There were only a handful of us that were producing content and actually had recognizable results. So we shared this information, we spoke to these people, and ultimately they were all amazed by the results that we were achieving. They couldn't fathom how we had such better chatting operations than every other agency out there. And ultimately the question landed on our desk, hey, will you chat for our agency if we provide you a commission? This birthed the inception of the chat service. It was a complete accident that the service even existed. We just simply were better than everybody else and people wanted a piece of the pie. So we explored that option. We started working with Nath, we started working with Dean, we started working with a handful of other people, and we adopted their entire agency, and we provided the chatting services. And everybody was extremely happy with the results, and as a result, referred other people, and other people, and other people. And the cycle went on, and we kind of did it again. This time, instead of scaling our own creators, we scaled everybody else's creators. And we had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of good creators. The turnover of the agency skyrocketed. It was at this point that we flew way past $1 million a month, well in excess of. And we quickly realized, if this is going to keep growing, we need a hell of a lot of more staff. So we were hiring and hiring and hiring and hiring, and the agency was growing at a monumental rate. However, one Sunday evening in a management meeting, we came to the realization that actually chatting is simply optimization. Marketing is growth. And we were consistently being held back by other people. We put our business's growth in the hands of other agencies that, in transparency, virtually all had no idea how to drive any traffic whatsoever. Their traffic lights were permanently on red, and that meant that our business's growth was also permanently on red. And the only way to scale was volume. And the problem with that was that we remembered what happened previously. So when we realized that not only do we have the best chatting, but actually, to our own surprise initially, we also seem to have the best marketing. Which leads to an obvious question in the next management meeting of, why are we focusing on other agencies' growth? Why don't we just come back and focus on our own? Now, we still do the chatting service because ultimately for agencies that we trust and value, we like to offer cooperation because together you can grow faster. But we are now very selective with who we work with, and we make sure that those agencies we do cooperate with are of the same ability or businessmanship that we are. It was at this point that we introduced two key focuses for the business's growth. Focus number one was creators, but not just any creators, hiring the perfect creator. Now, I've defined the perfect creator in the video on screen. We were making sure that we had sufficient, compliant, brandable and marketable creators that were offering us a high effort to revenue ratio. The second focus was marketing and ensuring that we had an adequate team for each of the platforms that we selected for each of the creators that we were working with. We hired our own development team and started developing our own strategies with dating apps and other blackout strategies. And we ticked a lot of the basic boxes like short form, Twitter, Reddit, and a few others like YouTube. So we had all of our structures in place, which meant that ultimately revenue and profit was skyrocketing. We quickly surpassed $100,000 a day, and all of the creators were extremely happy. We had the SOPs to match the number of staff, to match the turnover, and everything was green lights. The service that we offered to creators led them very, very satisfied with each department of the business and everything that we offered as a bolt-on, like accounting, car finance, or mortgages. As a result, a lot of these creators are bringing in extremely high quality referrals, which means that not only do we have our own roster of amazing models, but that roster is forever growing organically with creators that are already in the frame because they've come on a referral. This means that at this point, we can literally just churn the same process, keep growing new creators, and ultimately keep generating more revenue. Now, what's the purpose of this video? It's definitely not to suggest that this is a smooth sail, because this is a bumpy road and it's been just as bumpy for us as it is for you, I can assure you of that. We have arguably the highest payroll, the biggest creators which come with the most pressure. We deal with just as much stress, if not more than you do. However, OFM is probably the best opportunity in business that I've ever come across. The potential of this space as an agency owner is enormous. And if you do it right, morally, strategically, and professionally, your progression is inevitable. And whether you're a new agency or a current agency that are running into problems, exchanging value and collaborating with other agencies is often the answer. And that's why we have a free Telegram community linked in the description where you can join, exchange value, learn about how to start OFM, and ultimately accelerate your own growth. Link in the description. We'll see you in there.